Can you believe my neighbor's blaming me for my gravel making him fall? But it was his dumb ass fault.
Hey, shh.
Welcome back to Not Another Needless Sequel, where we watch movies and propose unnecessary prequels, sequels, reboots, and remakes. My name is Kane. With me, as always, is my co-host and wife, Kelsey.
We don't have time for this. They're supposed to be here in 45 minutes. Oh no, they're done.
You just pull any old thing from the movie, huh?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, well, this week...
Not every movie has like a good thing to say, but don't worry. When we hit season 3, I'm never doing that again.
Oh my god, stop.
I don't want you to worry, okay?
I'm keeping all this in.
Don't you worry your pretty little mind.
And I'm going to start a segment that we're going to, from every month, we're going to pull all the times when you were unnecessarily sassy and call it something.
What about the times when you're unnecessarily sassy?
That doesn't happen.
You're such a liar. Anyways, so this week we...
No, don't read that.
This week we kept up with the Kardashians. So what do you think the story was?
First of all, it's 2016's Keeping Up with the Joneses.
But you gotta say the line.
What line?
Oh, you. You dirty egg.
We don't make mistakes here, so whatever it is that you're reacting to is not real. Anyway, Keeping Up with the Joneses, what do you think the story was?
It's a story about a couple who lives in the suburbs, get new neighbors who are pretty mysterious, and they investigate them while their kids are gone at camp.
I like that their kids were just gone, and I didn't have to keep thinking about, what about the kids? You know?
I do think, though, at the beginning of the movie when it shows the kids go and they're like, what could we do? And then they just have, like, this, like, wild, crazy sex scene. And then the entire house is on fire. And it goes to, it was the wife. Her name is Karen. It was her imagination. And then he's like, I TiVo'd something. It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad that that's what she was imagining for herself. And then it's just not how their life is.
Yeah, they're trying to show that their life is, they are in like a kind of passionless marriage. Like they love each other, but things are a little different since they've had kids.
They're roommates.
Yeah.
And best friends, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
And she wants more passion.
Zach Galifianakis plays Jeff, and apparently, according to... Fuck, I don't actually know how to say it. Is it...
It's Ilsa.
Ilsa?
I think
Isla?
it's
Isla?
I always thought it was Isla, but... Or Ilsa. I don't know now. Damn.
I'm so sorry about this. According to Isla Fisher, who played Karen in this movie... Jim Carrey was originally cast as Jeff for this movie.
Wouldn't have been as good.
Right? I felt
wouldn't
like
have been as good. Yeah.
He can't do the same comedy that they did with him.
Yeah,
like,
this was more hangover comedy than Jim Carrey. What do you always say that he does with his face? Like the exaggerative facial expressions.
Yeah, he's got
comedy that he's good at.
For sure. And, you know, he does
not that he's not a good actor.
He, like, elongates words and shit, and, like, that's part of it. But this had a lot more of, like, just deadpan comedy where people just, like, say a quick comment and just kind of move on.
Yeah, just like in The Hangover when he says, who let the dogs out? Who? And then it just moves on.
Okay.
He says it's not a purse, it's a satchel.
Oh, God. Jeff and Karen live in a cul-de-sac, and, you know, they have a very stereotypical cul-de-sac suburban life. Now,
they have kids. She's an interior decorator. He works at an airport.
Yeah, he's very... Well, it's...
He works in HR, though, is the point.
I don't think it's an airport. I think he just has to go through, like, an airport-style security, but because they make chips there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, he's in HR. In comes some new neighbors. That is Tim and Natalie Jones, and they are super interested in new neighbors because that's just a cul-de-sac thing.
And they're also, Tim and Natalie just seem so in love, which Karen is, I don't want to say she's jealous of it, but she's envious because she wishes that's how her marriage was with the passion.
Yes.
But they are at, I think, like a backyard barbecue at
it's
one
June
of the neighbors' house.
Toberfest.
Oh, okay.
They're talking about it the whole time building up.
Junetoberfest. And I think the funniest part about that, you know, they're telling stories. All of these neighbors are awed by them. And then, you know, like suburban married women talking trash about Natalie is wearing like a shorter white dress that has like a lower back, but there was no kids there.
Yeah.
It was just the adults, and people are talking about it. But what the neighbor wife says is, if I find a picture of her ass on his phone, BJ night is canceled. And I was like, they have a sketch that just seems so suburban parent to me.
Yeah.
It almost seems passionless. Like she's just like, oh, I gotta do it. It's BJ night. But the fact that her husband was looking at her ass
gross.
and was taking, like, he was definitely taking looks at it, peeks at it, all that stuff in the scene. But I thought the line that his wife delivered was hilarious.
I'm going to cut this out, but it reminded me of...
And it tore her butthole. Thanks for cutting that out, but...
I'm going to just leave in the... I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to put, like, a beep, and then put... thanks for cutting that out.
Yeah. Or you could be like, tore her butthole, and then thanks for cutting that out.
I should, you're right. I'll just beep a bunch of it, like, and leave that part in.
Yeah.
God damn it, that's so good.
The good stuff.
Okay.
The kind of comedy we can't make up. Shabba-doo. This is going so off track. So anyways, with the movie...
Hold on, my trivia.
Oh, okay.
So, the screenwriter, Michael Lasser, found inspiration from friends he had that were living in a cul-de-sac who could not be happier. And that's kind of what they're trying to portray here, is that everyone is expected to be just so happy in this cul-de-sac. And, you know, that's also something that Karen and Jeff are uncomfortable with because, you know, they're not as happy as they should be in their marriage. So Karen starts suspecting that something with the Jones is off, and
at first starts at that party when she finds Tim in her husband's office.
Yeah, because they're doing espionage shit. Like, you know, it's not a secret to us, the viewers,
that they're spies.
Nobody believes her, and in fact, you know, Jeff is out. He goes to a restaurant with...
a snake restaurant.
Yeah, he goes to a restaurant with Tim. I wrote, like, most of my notes is just fucking lines that made me laugh. And it comes up here. Tim is like, you like Chinese? And Jeff goes, the food? And then he just, like, fucking looks at him and is like, yeah, the food. So yeah, they go to this fucking snake restaurant.
I think the best part of the snake restaurant, when they brought the live snake to the table, he's like, this is a live snake. He's like, yeah, I told you it's a snake restaurant. He's like, I thought it'd be like when you go to Panda Express, or he said
they don't serve
like
Panda
that.
at Panda Express.
Yeah, that is what he said. I was like, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Panda Express would hit right now.
I was so upset about that restaurant. I thought he was gonna take him to an actual cool restaurant.
Or like, was it not like, cool?
I mean,
because the snake is cut into pieces that then swivels its partially like cut off body and bites Jeff on the arm.
Yeah.
And he has to get this anti-venom.
That shit was just on his hand. Like, that was shocking.
But
I wasn't expecting
so drunk, too.
Because, like, they showed his head still moving, and at the time I was like, oh, something's going to happen with that. But then it had been so long that I was just, like, forgot about it. And he just lifts his hand up, and it's just on him.
Yeah.
But the point of this trip is that Tim is trying to get Jeff, like, super drunk and, like, learn stuff about him. And so, at one point, one of the lines I wrote down, he says to him, like, oh, well, you work in HR, you know, I'm sure you could tell me stories that are crazy. And he's like, oh, yeah, I could, but... And Tim says, you'd have to kill me? And Jeff, like, gets all serious, and he's like, I'd probably just get in trouble with corporate or something.
Yeah, he's such a rule follower.
Yeah. Anyway, meanwhile, this is happening where Tim is quite literally, like, manipulating Jeff for information. Karen is following Natalie.
She has some high-tech binoculars watching her.
Yes.
And then she gets in the car and follows her with this ugly hat.
Yeah, she's following her all over town. She ends up seeing a drop happen between Natalie and some stranger. They do this, like, very spy-style exchange of books. And eventually they end up in a mall. And she's in there, Natalie's in there trying on lingerie, and Karen... gets caught by her, and she's like, "Oh, are you also buying lingerie?" And she's trying to keep up the lie like she wasn't following her. And she's like, "Yeah." And Natalie's like, "Well, let me see what you have." And she grabs a pair, and it's like
Giant
granny.
granny panties.
Yeah, she says they're for Jeff's mom, actually. She's morbidly obese and drives around on a scooter.
It's so good. That line is good.
Yeah, but they have this moment where she, like, intimidates her with her sexuality and is like, you and your husband need this to keep the flame alive, that kind of thing, and basically gets her to buy lingerie, trying to prevent her from figuring out the truth because Natalie's aware that Karen's been following her all day. Anyway, after having these interactions with the Joneses, they are at home and they were gifted a glass statue by the Joneses, and they kick it over when they're trying to have sex, and it smashes, and they find a bug, and the bug is, listening to them. And
Karen, well, what's even funnier is turns this record player on. She's like narrating the sex and how much fun they're having. He's like, "Oh, you want me to narrate?" Blah, blah, and just says some weird shit, and she gets him upstairs and is like, "It's a bug, blah, blah, blah." And he finally believes her.
Yeah, so they know something's up, and
Jeff tells his boss, who's the head of security at the company, to look into it, which his boss does look into it and gives him a call, and they meet him at his... it's like a different
camper.
Location. Yeah,
he's living in a camper.
Yeah.
He says it. He's like, well, yeah, my wife kicked me out, but now that you guys brought me this, I'm going to be able to get, like, a house.
He brought him a coffee and some other stuff, too. But so he's going to tell them, and then he gets shot in the head.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that. I literally wrote, like, down, they killing people in this movie? Like, I didn't think anyone was going to die like that. And, so... one of the lines I wrote down is from that scene. So they're being shot at after the head of security is shot. This person's still shooting at them. And Natalie and Tim show up, and they're spies, so they're now shooting back, defending Jeff and Karen. And Jeff and Karen are ducked behind, like, a fucking pole or something. And Karen's like, let's run for Carl's house, like, pointing at his fucking just RV. The way she said it felt like it was supposed to be comical, like calling it a house.
The Joneses come and save them, and there's an entire action sequence that starts happening of, them doing the spy stuff, them having the Joneses, or not the Joneses, they come and save Tim and the Gaffneys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually thought that scene was classic and funny.
The car chase?
I enjoyed the car chase sequence until they got back home and then the house blew up. Yeah. All of that was good.
I didn't think it was bad. Like, it felt like it was the right kind of cheesy, not like in a bad way, like it's referencing a thing. So the thing about that car chase, apparently, the cast gave a special shout out to John Hamm because he did much of the stunt driving himself.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
I know. They were doing, pretty good shit in that.
They did. Well, I would have just thought family, I thought that Gal Gadot would have done a lot of it. She was family. Movies. She was family.
So they, the Joneses and the Gaffneys, like, they are forming an actual friendship this whole time after they were kind of hurt that, they were betrayed by them.
Yeah, and, they make a comment. Natalie makes a comment. She says, 10 years, 30 countries, and we couldn't even last a week in suburbia because the Gaffney, or really Karen, found out that they were spies easily.
Yeah, and you can see that Tim actually does like Jeff. Like, he's trying to pretend like he doesn't, but he gets caught with, like, a picture of them doing indoor skydiving, and he, like, was saving it.
He wants to get out of what they do.
Yes, he tells him honestly at one point at that snake restaurant that he hates what he does, and he wishes, he could actually just relax and do this kind of thing. So anyway, as they're forming this friendship, they are like, all right, we're going to talk to you guys later. And the Joneses go in their house, and it explodes. And so the Gaffneys assume they're dead. Next thing you know, the Gaffneys find the Joneses in their fucking basement with their neighbors, Dan and Meg, like, tied up, and they're getting ready to torture them.
And it's because Dan has been using Jeff's work computer to extract all of this data for who they're trying to catch, and because it was on Jeff's computer, that's why Tim and Natalie were investigating him. because it looked like it was him.
And so, yeah, so this guy's trying to sell these chips from the company they work at that's got all this information on it. During this torture scene, they get a call from the buyer, Scorpion, and Jeff pretends to be his neighbor, Dan, and takes over the buy from Scorpion. Mm-hmm. And so they go, Jeff and Karen, they get all dressed up. They're kind of doing, like, their own, like, spy thing in a way.
Yeah, they put a suit on, she puts a nice outfit on, and then Tim and Natalie are in, the classic all black spy stuff waiting on the roof. But I think that was where my quote came from, is because, Karen is hot and bothered by it. It's almost like they rekindle the passion in their marriage, and Tim is annoyed because they all have mics on too, which make it even worse, but they can hear them having sex, and Natalie's like, oh, just like let them, have their fun, and he's like, they're supposed to be here in 45 minutes. Like, that's not enough time. And then all of a sudden, like, 20 seconds go by and he's like, oh, nope. They're done. Yeah. It was just funny.
Yeah. So, at this Scorpion meetup, it goes sideways because the guy, Scorpion, played by Patton Oswalt, was somebody that worked at the company. And Jeff keeps pointing out that he thinks he knows him. And eventually it clicks and he realizes who Jeff is. And Jeff is an HR guy. He's not the guy that would be able to sell these chips, so he realizes this is set up. And they have, like, a shootout. They jump out a window and...
into a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And Jeff, like, had set off this bomb.
They had faked the chips, and they put explosive chips in the ones that they gave him. So he was holding all the chips, Scorpion, and it exploded. So they killed all of them, and probably several other people in this hotel.
Yeah. And flash forward a year in the credits.
Yeah, and so you see that Jeff and Karen are now traveling, They are doing something that they've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
They got out of the country.
They go to Morocco, which is a place that Tim had mentioned to Jeff was great, and it was a place that was special to both him and Natalie.
Yeah.
And who is there other than Tim and Natalie on a mission, and they basically fuck it all up again.
Yeah, they just walk up and start fucking talking to them and, like, pull up chairs and shit, and then they look over at these guys that they're watching, and the guys notice that he's clearly staring at them, so they're pulling guns. But yeah, it ends like that. Before I do my rating, I had some lines or some notes that I didn't get to talk about that I want to, just because this is a comedy one, so I want to talk about the things that made me laugh. When Jeff and Tim are at that snake restaurant, he's trying to get information about anybody who seems like they might be rich at work. And he brings up this guy, Sanjay. He's like, yeah, Sanjay, he bought a Grailbot. And Tim is like, what's that? And Jeff just stops and is like, Sanjay is a guy I work with. He's like, I know what a Sanjay is. I mean, the Grailbot. And then when Karen and Natalie are doing the mall thing, the try-on of the lingerie, Natalie is saying, like, oh, do you do Kegels? You need to do Kegels. And she's like, yeah, I do. And she's like, in fact, I'm actually doing one right now. And she says, I could crack a walnut down there if I needed to. And Karen's like, have you ever had a need to?
What I thought was weird about the Kegels is they were both moaning.
Yeah, well.
During the Kegels. I
guess it's a good-ass Kegel. The last thing is, when they're talking about how their neighbor stole the microchips, he's like, he stole them prison style. And he's like, what does that mean? And Karen says, oh, he put them in a balloon and up his... And he takes the chips and smells them and is like, ugh. And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah, why would you know that? Why?
The budget for this movie was $40 million. It only made $29.9 million in the box office.
Aww.
On Rotten Tomatoes, this film has an approval rating of 19% based on 124 ratings with an average rating of 4.4 out of 10.
Let me tell you, though, I think this movie, it's not the best movie I've ever seen, but I think you have to look at it from what the goal of the movie was. Like, the genre of the movie and what the goal of the movie was. It was a good movie, if you look at it from that perspective. It's not meant to be serious. It's not, I think they were making fun of a couple of things in this movie, and the comedy lines were funny. Now, the action sequences kind of sucked. It's really cheesy. There's definitely, like, holes and stuff like that in it, but I still liked it. I mean, I probably wouldn't be like, ooh, I want to watch that movie, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking on, like, the plot and stuff about the jokes, the film was originally envisioned as a sequel to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but the idea was scrapped because Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie turned down the offer. And then the director actually said, when speaking about the movie, we didn't design the movie to just machine gun jokes all the time. The humor, action, romance are always grounded. These characters are meant to be recognizable, and I think audiences will really like them. So some people, were saying it wasn't very funny, but it wasn't supposed to be like the whole time. I rated it a 3 out of 5. I think it's a bit underrated, not by me. I'm just saying people not liking it. I think it's better than that. I do think I could imagine at the time why people probably didn't like it, but I think it's aged well. And it's not the best thing, but like I said, 3 out of 5, not bad. I think it deserved to make its money back at least.
I do too. I don't think it was that bad. I've seen much worse movies than that.
Absolutely. Okay, so I wanted to ask you if, the premise of this movie being that this couple is secretly spies, what if that were to occur in real life? And so out of these celebrity couples, I want you to tell me who you think would be or could be spies. Would you be surprised, basically, if it was revealed they were spies?
Okay.
Starting with Zendaya and Tom Holland.
They could do it.
They look like they could be spies.
Yeah. He can do, flips and stuff. I also think, they're good at being incognito, despite being famous.
True that.
So, I think they could do it.
Yeah. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
No, he's too big. And too loud. But you know what? She is good at being incognito because nobody saw her publicly for 2 years.
Oh, that's crazy.
After that Kanye scandal.
I mean, you're a bit of a
Swiftie. That turned out to be a lie.
Beyonce and Jay-Z. I think they actually literally are spies and their relationship is not real.
I think their relationship's not real. I don't think that they're spies, but...
John Jack Reacher Krasinski and Emily I'll Never Be in a Marvel Movie Blunt.
Yes.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
You're right. He's Jack Reacher.
Yeah, he is Jack Reacher.
Okay, Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar.
They could be spies in the way that Jeff and Karen could be spies.
Okay.
But not, they are part of the Mystery Machine. Or the, Mystery Inc.
Basically, we are of the opinion that anyone could be a spy. We don't trust none of you bitches.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what is your sequel? This motherfucker ain't getting a sequel. Made nothing.
So my sequel is called Not Another Comedic Action Movie.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like our podcast name that was inspired by Not Another
Teen
Movie.
Yeah. So same thing, spoof, similar to Not Another Teen Movie, scary movie. There's one about
Epic
the Hunger
movie.
Games. Epic movie.
The Starving Games.
The Starving Games. Yeah, all of that. So I think this movie should be a combination of, keeping up with the Joneses, date night, game night, that movie Hitman. Yeah, you watched that with me. The Netflix,
We did that on the pod.
Yeah, we did. So I think it could be a combination of all of those. With the caveat that the movie star, the main two couple characters, is going to be Nick Offerman and Amy Adams.
Ooh.
Because they're mostly spoofed and mistaken for Zach Galifianakis and Isla Fisher. Sorry, I can't say her name very well. Isla Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it would be funny if there was, little jokes made. And then maybe once they break the fourth wall or something. But
yeah.
that's the movie. Not another comedic action movie. Just a spoof on all movies like this.
I like it.
Thanks.
Well, for mine, I called it Keeping Up with the Joneses to Russia with Love.
Oh, not From Russia with Love?
Yeah.
Because you can't,
Yeah, because...
steal James Bond's title?
Basically.
Okay.
It's supposed to be that it's like a spoof on that.
Okay.
Jeff and Karen have continued getting out of the cul-de-sac whenever they can and are arriving in Russia. See? To Russia?
Mm.
As they pass through customs, we see a shady-looking henchman watching them and calling their boss, announcing that the targets have arrived. Jeff and Karen start to notice something is off as they are given elevated treatment at their hotel with room upgrades, gift baskets, and finally an invite to an exclusive dinner for VIP guests only. Upon leaving their room to try and clear their minds about the whole situation, the couple, who has been taking Russian lessons in preparation for this trip, believe they overhear someone announce their room is clear when they leave. They see this man enter the room and decide to jump him. Upon trying to attack the man, they realize it's part of the hotel staff who is leaving them a thank you gift in their room. I thought that'd be funny. You know,
He'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's going on? Anyway. But before they can apologize for their mistake, 2 henchmen with guns enter the room, gesturing for the staff member to leave. The Gaffneys really are being kidnapped. Through Jeff connecting with the henchmen, you know, like the HR thing he does, they learn that they have been captured by an organization known as Spectre. Huh? Like to Russia or from Russia with love?
Yeah.
But I'm going to spell it different.
Yeah, you're not going to spell it Spectre.
Yeah.
It's going to be Spectre.
Yeah, basically.
I like that.
Organization known as Spectre, who was holding a grudge against Tim and Natalie Jones and needed a way to lure them in. Jeff and Karen are the only reported friends of Tim and Natalie over the past 20 years. This will parallel conversations we see from Tim and Natalie where they reminisce about their friends and again discuss wanting to settle down for real. Natalie and Tim received a recorded message from Jeff and Karen where they can hardly get out information of their kidnapping because they are just so excited to talk to their old friends.
Aww.
So I thought that'd be funny if like the kidnappers are like, tell them. And they're just like, oh my gosh, it's so good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Like,
it's been a long time.
yeah, well, they're like being threatened to tell them. Anyway, Tim and Natalie show up to save the Gaffneys, leading to chaos, which results in the couple splitting up with Natalie and Jeff together facing their own obstacles and Tim and Karen handling their own battles. And so you would see Jeff and Karen do some spy stuff, but like accidentally. Like obviously, you know, somebody throws something and it like bounces in the right way and hits a henchman in the head. Something like that. You know, they're trying to be spies with their friends. Anyway, during the split, Tim and Natalie are forced to face their fears and desires for their own future. Eventually, they are able to escape and eliminate the head of Spectre, maybe even with accidental help from the Gaffneys. Several months later, we see Natalie and Tim moving back into the cul-de-sac right across from the Gaffneys as they smile and wave at one another.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, because I felt bad that line didn't really get resolved in the movie. Is like he wanted to quit.
That's how I thought the movie was going to end. I thought it was going to be like several months later, and then they were going to actually have bought that house.
I thought they were doing the Dark Knight thing, you know? They were going to see them and just raise their glass. Like,
I mean, they kind of did.
But they pulled up their seat, you know?
Yeah.
Alfred never would have did that to Bruce. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We do so appreciate it. If you want to talk movies with us, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Blue Sky. We are NansPod everywhere.
NansPod?
If you'd like to vote on whose sequel idea was the best, come by our YouTube channel for the polls, or you can let us know your idea across our socials or at needlesssequel@gmail.com. Links, as always, will be wherever you are listening. If I could ask you for one thing, is to share a show with someone and leave us a review. That is how we get new listeners. Of course, I also ask that you come back for more Needless Sequels. Next week, we are watching Passengers on Prime. Take care of yourselves, everyone. We will see you next week.
Bye!